Hello, my dear students. So, welcome back to this ethics lecture series. So, as a review, last time we discussed about consequentialism and one of its major variants, which is utilitarianism. No? So, sinasabi ng consequentialism na what makes an action right or wrong is dependent on the action's consequences. Diba? So, now we are going to discuss deontology, which is a very contrasting view to utilitarianism, no? So makikita natin shortly later na medyo opposing talaga itong view ng utilitarianism at saka ng deontology. Okay. So let's first define our terms, no? So ano sinasabi ng deontology? So nakikita nyo dyan sa screen, deontology is the view that we have certain distinct duties that can never be overridden by their possible or potential consequences. So, malinaw na malinaw kagad dito, makikita natin na opposite sila ng utilitarianism. Kasi ang sinasabi ng deontology, meron tayong mga moral obligations na kailangan natin gawin or meron mga bagay na mali na kailangan nating iwasan kahit na magdudulot pa ito ng magandang consequence o kahit yung ating duty ay magdudulot ng hindi magandang consequence. Okay? So, bago natin tignan ng malalim itong deontology, tignan muna natin yung isang principle in logic. Isang fundamental principle in logic. Ito yung tinatawag na principle of non-contradiction. Okay? So, ano sinasabi ng principle of non-contradiction? Sinasabi noon that something cannot be and not be at the same time and in the same respect. Okay? So, medyo technical yung kanyang sound, yung kanyang pagkaka-state, no? Pero actually, lahat tayong mga tao na nasa wastong gulang na at may isip na, ito ay isang principle na alam na natin sa isip natin. Okay? So, ang sinasabi lang nito, yung isang bagay na merong ganitong property, may property A, hindi pwedeng wala siya ng property A na yon sa parehong oras at sa parehong pakahulugan. Okay? So, ibig sabihin nun, halimbawa, kung ngayon ako ay merong relo, okay? Meron akong relo, hindi pwedeng sa parehong oras at sa parehong pakahulugan ng relo, wala ako. Okay? Okay. So, another example. Halimbawa, yung isang taong present, physically present, hindi pwedeng sa parehong pakahulugan at parehong oras, siya ay physically absent. Diba? So, you cannot be physically present and physically absent at the same time and in the same respect. Di ba? That would be a contradiction. So, kayo nga tayo mga tao, pag nakakarinig tayo ng mga statements na contradictory, nagigets agad natin na hindi sila pwedeng maging parehong totoo. Di ba? So, halimbawa, mundane example, halimbawa, pag sinabi niyang siya ay single, diba? At nakita mo siyang may kaharutan, no? At nalaman mo na yon ay girlfriend niya, okay? Or boyfriend niya. Hindi pwedeng single siya, meaning wala siyang boyfriend or girlfriend, and at the same time, meron siyang kasintahan. Diba? That would be a contradiction. Diba? So, those two statements, yung single at may kasintahan, cannot at the same time both be true because that would be a contradiction. Okay? So, bakit natin nabanggit ito? Ay ethics ang usapan natin, di ba? Rightness, wrongness, no? Kasi para kay Kant, no? Yung principle of non-contradiction sa logic, sabi niya, kailangan meron ding ganong principle in morality. Okay? Yun ang kailangan nating madiscover. In such a way na yung principle na ito in ethics is so supreme na kapag violate mo siya, you will become irrational, no? Kasi yung principle of non-contradiction, pag violate mo siya, automatic you end up being irrational, di ba? So sabi ni Kant, meron kayang ganitong principle din sa morality. So yun yung naging project niya. Okay? So ayun, nabanggit na natin kanina, pero sa mas malalimang pagkukumpara, no? Para kay Kant, hindi mo ma-determine yung moral goodness by talents of mind or gifts of fortune, no? Kasi itong mga bagay na ito, halimbawa katalinuhan, yung talent mo, ito ay mga bagay na pwedeng gamitin sa mabuti, pero pwede rin siyang magamit sa masama o sa hindi magandang bagay. So sabi niya, hindi yun ang pwedeng maging criteria for what counts as moral good. Okay? And happiness itself, which is the supreme standard for utilitarianism, di ba? Yung greatest happiness principle. Sabi niya, kahit mismong happiness, hindi rin pwedeng maging criteria for what makes an act morally good. Okay? Kasi sabi niya, yung naka-quotation mark dyan, because being happy produces boldness and thereby often arrogance. Sabi niya, kahit mismo yung pagiging masaya, pwede siyang maging kadahilanan para makagawa ng hindi mabuti o ng masama. Okay? So sabi ni Kant, so ano lang yung pwedeng maging isang bagay that can make something good without qualification. Diba? At para kay Kant, yun ay yung tinatawag niyang goodwill. Okay, the goodwill. So what is the goodwill? Sabi niya Kant, goodwill is the only thing good without qualification. Okay? So ano ibig sabihin niya doon? To have a goodwill, sabi ni Kant, is to do an act for the sake of duty. It is performing an action for the sake of duty. So sabi niya, kailangan ma-differentiate natin dito sa sabi niya, an act done in accordance with duty. So dalawa yun ha. Pag sinabi mong goodwill, it is an act done for the sake of duty. Whereas yung kabilang side is an act done in accordance with duty. So ano kinaba nun? Kasi sabi niya, pwede mong tignan yung iisang act. Okay? Pero that same act can be morally good or morally bad. So halimbawa, charity. Okay? Pagtulong kunyari sa mga mahihirap o sa mga nasalanta ng bagyo, no? Yung isang act, yung action na yon, yung charity, pwede mo siyang gawin lang in accordance with duty. Okay? Kasi yung duty is to be charitable. Pero hindi siya morally good. Halimbawa, isang politiko na tumutulong lang para magpabango ng kanyang pangalan. So that would be an act in accordance with duty, but not an act done for the sake of duty. Okay? So pag sabi mong for the sake of duty, ibig sabihin nun, ginagawa mo yung action because you believe it's the right thing to do. Diba? Kaya for the sake of duty, you're doing it because it's the right thing to do. Okay? So, nakalagay dyan, no? It must be done out of a concern for what is morally right, not out of some self-serving motive. Diba? So, yung politician na ginagawa lang para magpabango ng kanyang pangalan, that's only an act done in accordance with duty, but not for the sake of duty. So, hindi siya good pa rin. Yung good is, ginagawa mo isang bagay kasi yun ang tama. Okay. So, malinaw tayo doon. Pero syempre, yung follow-up question doon, paano natin ma-identify kung ano yung mga duties natin, ano yung ating mga moral duties. So, doon na nag-come up si Kant ng tinatawag niyang categorical imperative. Ito yung absolute duty from which all other duties are based. No? Okay, so makikita nyo dyan sa graph, may contrast. No? On the one side, there is categorical imperative. On the one side, on the other hand, there is the hypothetical imperative. Tapos sa hypothetical imperative, merong dalawang sanga. May dalawang variants, technical imperative and assertoric imperative. So isa-isahin natin 'yan. Isa-isahin natin, no? So ang pag sinabi mong technical imperative, okay, ito yung mga you're doing something because you have a particular goal. Okay? So, yun ang technical imperative. So, halimbawa, no? Let's say you have a goal, okay? Let's say gusto mong magkaroon ng 50,000 by the end of 2021. Okay? So, in order to reach that goal, may mga bagay kang dapat gawin. So, halimbawa, you need to have a business set up by January 2021. Okay? So, ang technical imperative doon is if you want to have 50,000 by the end of 2021, you need to set up business by the start of the year 2021. Okay? So, yun yung technical imperative. Yung imperative na nakabase lang siya because of certain goals of individuals. Okay? Ngayon, yung sumunod naman na imperative, yung tinatawag na assertoric imperative, is nakabase siya sa happiness. Ibig sabihin, ito yung mga bagay na ginagawa natin in order to be happy, because happiness is the end. Yun yung ultimate end. Diba? So, kaya sa hypothetical, kasi nga may if then. Diba? So, sa technical imperative, if you want to achieve goal X, you need to do Y. Okay? Sa assertoric imperative naman, if you want to be happy, you need to do X, Y, and Z. Okay? Sa categorical imperative, hindi siya nakabase sa if then, kundi categorical nga eh. Kunyari, do not lie. Diba? Do good the most you can. Do the most good you can. So, sabi ni Kant, ang mga moral imperatives, they are categorical imperatives. They are not based on a hypothetical. Okay. So, what's their degree of necessity? Okay? So, ang pinakamababa is the technical imperative. Bakit? Kasi nga, susundin mo lang yung imperative na to, yung command na to, if you have this certain goal. So, example natin kanina, yung goal ay 50,000 by the end of 2021. Ang problema, hindi naman lahat ng tao may ganong goal. Diba? Iba yung goal nila. Diba? Baka yung goal nila ay maka-mythic lang sa Mobile Legend by the end of 2020. Diba? So, magkakaiba tayo ng goal. So, kapag hindi mo pinupurso yung goal na yun, so, walang necessity for you to do the certain steps to achieve that particular goal. Okay? Ngayon, assertoric imperative, medyo mas mataas yan ng konti. Diba? Kasi sabi ni Kant, and common sense tells us na lahat tayo gusto maging masaya. Diba? Problema, sabi ni Kant, happiness is an indeterminate end. Ibig sabihin nun, iba't ibang tao, may iba't iba silang konsepto kung paano nila makukuha ang kasiyahan, kung paano sila magiging masaya. Diba? So, may mga ibang tao, tingin nila magiging masaya sila pag sila ay naging milyonaryo. May mga ibang tao, magiging masaya sila kung sila ay magkakaroon ng maayos na pamilya. Yung iba ay kung ma-achieve nila yung kanilang professional goals, no? So, indeterminate siya kasi nga iba't ibang tao ay may iba't ibang konsepto kung paano sila magiging masaya. Di ba? Baka yung bagay na magpapasaya sa iyo ay hindi yung bagay na magpapasaya sa akin. So, again, hindi ganun ka final yung necessity na meron doon. Meron pa rin siyang degree of necessity kasi lahat tayo gusto maging masaya. Pero iba-iba tayo ng konsepto. Whereas sa categorical imperative, ito yung pinakamataas. No? Kasi sabi ni Kant, hindi siya nakadepende on pursuing certain ends, kundi yung kanyang validity unconditional. Okay? So, kung ano yung imperative na sinasabi ng categorical imperative, yun na yun. Period. Di ba? Pag sabing do not lie, yun na yun. Period. Wala nang if then doon. Do not lie. Di ba? Do not murder. Do not kill. Okay? So, yun ang pinakamataas, yung categorical imperative. Okay, ngayon, ano yung categorical imperative? Sinasabi ni Kant. So, ito ay isang test para makita yung universalizability and rational acceptability of our maxims. Okay? At ito yung para kay Kant, yung supreme principle of morality. So, naalala nyo kanina yung principle of non-contradiction. Kung yung principle of non-contradiction ang supreme principle in logic, kay Kant, sabi niya, yung categorical imperative is the supreme principle in morality. Okay, so let's define our terms. Ano sinasabi dito ni Kant na maxim? So, nakalagay dyan sa inyong screen is the general rule in accordance with which the agent intends to act. Okay? Kasi sabi ni Kant, kumbaga parang lahat ng bagay na gagawin mo, bago mo yung gawin, meron kang maxim na pinanggagalingan. Okay? So, halimbawa, yung politiko na nagbibigay lang sa mahirap para magpabango ng kanyang pangalan, ano yung maxim niya doon? Ibig sabihin doon, do charitable things in order to enhance my positive image. So, yun yung maxim niya. Di ba? Yun yun. Or, halimbawa, nagsinungaling ka para maka-attend sa birthday party ng kaibigan mo. So, ano yung maxim mo doon? Lie if lying will help you in strengthening your friendships. So, yun yung maxim. Okay. So, yung categorical imperative ni Kant, meron siyang binigay na tatlong formulation. Okay, tatlo. So, ano yung una? Yung una, ito yung tinatawag niyang the formula of universal law. So, yung nakalagay dyan, this is act only in accordance with that maxim through which you can at the same time will that it become a universal law. Okay? So parang ano siya, 'di ba? Parang kung babasahin mo parang parang legal statute, 'di ba? Napaka-technical ng mga terms saka ng pagka-formulate ni Kant, no? Pero ano ba sinasabi niyan? Sinasabi niya lang diyan na pag gagawa ka ng isang bagay, if you will act, dapat yung maxim that is the basis of your action is something that you can will that it becomes a universal law. So ito yung test of universalizability ni Kant, no? So kung ilalagay mo sa isang tanong, parang ano yan tatanungin mo yung sarili mo, can I will that my maxim should become a universal law without being charged with inconsistency or contradiction? Pwede mo bang ma-uphold yung maximo na yon nang hindi ka nagko-commit ng inconsistency or contradiction? Okay. So, medyo, sabi ko nga, technical, no? So, yung mga ibang mga philosophers, yung mga scholars ni Kant, nag-suggest sila ng mga interpretations. So, yung isang scholar na si Christian Kierkegaard, isang philosopher na expert kay Kant, nagsuggest siya ng tatlong possible interpretation. So, kung ano ibig sabihin dito ng contradiction ni Kant, no? So, the first contradiction is yung logical contradiction. So, ito na yung kanina, pag na-violate mo yung principle of non-contradiction, that is a logical contradiction. Okay? So, ito yung pinakamadalang naman, no? Pinakamadalang. So, other than logical contradiction, meron siyang tinatawag na teleological contradiction, no? Ibig sabihin nito, pag yung principle could not function as a law within a purposeful and organized system of nature. So, kina-contradict mo yung direksyon na pinupuntahan ng system of nature. Okay? So, ang binigay na example dito ni Kant is yung pag-commit ng suicide. Sabi niya, this is a teleological contradiction. Bakit? Kasi ang sabi dito ni Kant, ang mga tao, we are designed by nature to propagate and to preserve our life. Okay? Pero by committing suicide, you are contradicting that system of nature. Diba? Which is your design to preserve and propagate your life. Okay? Teleological yon. Ikatlo, which seems to be the most parang ito yung pinaka-feasible na interpretation is the practical contradiction. So, ibig sabihin nito, pag yung action is ineffective for achieving its purpose if everyone tried to use it for that purpose. Okay? So, ang binigyan ng example dito ni Kant is making a promise without the intention of fulfilling it. Okay? So ang kwento niya dyan, sa halimbawa daw, may isang tao, kunyari si Juan. Si Juan, nangutang siya sa kanyang kapitbahay, no? 100 pesos. Pero, dahil si Juan ay walang kapera-pera, wala siyang intensyong bayaran yung 100 pesos na yon, no? So, ano yung maxim na namumutawi sa kanya? Parang ano yun? Parang, make a promise without the intention of fulfilling it. Okay? Make a promise even if you have no intention of fulfilling it. Okay? So, paano siya ngayon nagko-commit ng practical contradiction? Kasi sabi ni Kant, imagine if a world, if the world is such that when everyone makes a promise, they have no intention of fulfilling it. So, ano mangyari ngayon sa mundong yun? Mangyari, mawawala na ng bisa yung pangako. Bakit? Kasi, kung lahat naman ay walang intensyong tuparin ang kanilang pangako, wala nang maniniwala sa pangako, so in the end, magiging walang saysay ang pagpapangako. Kasi nga, wala nang maniniwala eh. Diba? Because, no one has the obligation to fulfill their promise. So, practical contradiction siya kasi nga nag-promise ka pero in the end hindi mo ma-achieve yung purpose ng pagpa-promise mo kasi mayroon kang practical contradiction na na-commit. Okay? So, yun ang ibig sabihin ng practical contradiction. So, ito na ayoko kung nabanggit ko ito sa utilitarianism side, yung sa moral objectivism. Kung naalala niyo yung discussion natin ng moral absolutism, 'di ba? Sabi natin si Kant is a moral absolutist. So, halimbawa diyan, another example is yung lying, 'di ba? Sabi natin, dahil moral absolutist si Kant, you should not lie regardless of the positive consequences, 'di ba? Kahit makakasave ka ng life. Kasi nga para kay Kant, you will commit a practical contradiction if you lie. Diba? Kasi, ang mangyayari doon, lie only if it will serve a positive consequence. Sabi ni Kant, if everybody would follow that maxim, ang mangyayari noon, lahat ng taong magsasabi sabi nila ay nagsasabi sila ng totoo, hindi na sila paniniwalaan. Kasi nga, pwede ka magsinungaling kung may positive consequence. Ang mangyari nun, mas magbe-breakdown daw yung communication kasi people would no longer believe others. So, practical contradiction siya. Okay? Okay, so yun yung unang formula. Okay? The formula of universal law. So, yung pangalawang formula, itinatawag ni Kant na formula of humanity. Okay? What's the formula of humanity? Act as to treat humanity, whether in your own person or in that of any other, always as an end and never merely as a means. Okay. So, again, sounding technical, no? Kasi si Kant talaga, pag binasa mo yung mga works niya, very technical, no? Very jargonic, maraming mga terms siyang ginagamit, no? So, yung isang component ng formula na to ay tinawag ng mga philosophers na respect expression principle. So ano yun? We treat humanity as an end in itself just in case our actions express proper respect for the value it possesses. No? So, kay Kant, bakit kailangan nating i-treat ang tao as an end in themselves? No? Kasi sabi niya, ang tao lamang ang merong rational capacity. No? So, tayo lang rin ang pwedeng maging end in ourselves. Bakit? Because we are an object for the sake of which an agent, yung end, pag sinabi mong end, is an object for the sake of which an agent either acts or ought to act. Diba? Mayroon kang end, mayroon kang goal. Pero ang tao lang ang pwedeng maging end in himself kasi siya lang yung may kakayanang mag-determine ng goal para sa sarili niya. Kaya niyang i-determine yun. Kaya niyang pag-isipan yun. Kaya niyang gamitin yung kanyang reason to pursue particular goals. Diba? to be an end is to be an object of action from the point of view of oneself. Diba? So, pag sinabi mong to be an end in himself, ano ibig sabihin nun? Meron siyang tatlong value. Meron tatlong katangian, no? First, it is an objective end. Ibig sabihin ng tao, ang value ng tao, pagiging end in himself, is objective. Hindi siya relative. Okay? So, ang halaga ng tao, hindi siya nakabase sa kung sinong tumitingin sa halaga niya. Okay? So, yung mga communist governments, no? Kahit tignan nila yung kanilang mga constituents na parang hindi tao, di ba? Na nagkukulong sila ng mga political prisoners, hindi ibig sabihin nun na walang halaga yung mga tao na yun. Di ba? Kasi nga, yung value ng tao is objective, not relative. Hindi siya nakabase sa gobyerno, hindi nakabase sa state, hindi siya nakabase kung sino ang hari, kundi it is objective. Humans are objectively valuable. Okay? Pangalawa, is to be an end in itself is to possess unconditional worth. Okay? Ibig sabihin nito, yung kanyang halaga hindi nakabase sa mga kondisyon. Okay? Walang bagay na pwedeng makakatanggal ng kanyang value o magka-cancel out ng kanyang value. Okay? So, ang isang tao, kahit nakagawa ng masama, hindi na-cancel out doon yung kanyang value as a human being. Okay? Kung siya ay natanggalan ng kamay, natanggalan ng paa, like yung mga soldiers, di ba, na sumasabak sa gera, ibig sabihin wala silang paa, nabawasan din yung kanilang value as a human being. Okay? Hindi ibig sabihin na yung isang tao ay hindi nakapag-aral o hindi nakatapos, nabawas na rin ang kanyang value as a human being. So, regardless of your education, di ba? Regardless of your gender, regardless of your social status, of your religion or lack of religion, walang bagay na nakabase yung halaga mo as a human being because human worth is unconditional. Okay? Pangatlo is it has incomparable value. So, ang halaga ng tao, hindi mo siya pwedeng ikumpara sa ibang bagay. So, ibig sabihin nito, ang halaga ng tao ay hindi nabibili. Diba? Human beings possess dignity and has no equivalence. Ayan, no? Ibig sabihin nun, to have a dignity is human beings cannot be exchanged for anything with a price. Kasi incomparable nga eh. Kasi pag nilagyan mo siya ng presyo, ibig sabihin nun, binigyan mo na siya ng comparison. Ibig sabihin, pwede mo siyang ikumpara sa bagay na ito. Diba? Ganun lang mangyari nun. Pero hindi ganun yun. Hindi mo pwedeng bilhin ng tao. Kaya nga mali ang slavery. Diba? Kasi ang ginagawa ng slavery is it makes human beings comparable to something else. Kasi nabibili yung tao sa slavery. Diba? Kalawa, it means human beings cannot be sacrificed for or exchanged with others that have dignity. So, ibig sabihin din nun, hindi mo pwedeng ipagpalit yung isang tao sa ibang tao rin. Diba? Ganun yun. Kasi nga, incomparable. No? So, kung titignan natin dito, napakataas, napakasagrado ng tingin ni Kant sa humanity. Diba? Kaya nga formula of humanity kasi ganun kasagrado yung tingin niya sa tao. So, makikita agad natin ulit dito yung contrast kay Kant at saka sa utilitarianism. Diba? Naalala nyo sa trolley problem na sa trolley problem mas mahalagang i-pull mo yung lever in order to save the 5 kahit na may isang mamamatay. Pero kay Kant, kung ganun daw ang prinsipyo mo, kung ganun ang tumatakbo sa isip mo, mali yun. Kasi parang nangyari doon, you are comparing. Parang sinasabi mong mas matimbang yung 5 tao sa isa. Diba? Pero dito, sabi nga dyan, incomparable. Sinasabi ni Kant, hindi mo makukumpara yung value ng tao na yun. Okay? Okay. So, yun yung first. Diba? Yung respect expression principle. So, yung kalawang component naman doon, tinawag na mere means principle. Okay? So, ibig sabihin lang noon, we should not treat others as mere means. Okay? Ngayon, mahalaga dito yung term na merely as a means. Okay? Bakit? Kasi we treat others as means all the time. Okay? So, halimbawa, you as my students, you are treating me as a means for you to be educated. Di ba? Ako naman, as an employee, I am treating my employer as a means to earn my living. Di ba? So lahat ay ginagamit natin yung iba as means. At walang problema doon. Di ba? Walang problema doon. Ang problema, pag tinrato mo yung ibang tao as a mere means. Okay? So, ano ibig sabihin ng as a mere means doon? Ano ibig sabihin ng treating others as a mere means? Ibig sabihin nun, sabi doon, ang isang suggestion dyan ni philosopher Derek Parfit is to interpret this principle with the idea of consent. Okay? So, ano yung consent principle? It is wrong to treat anyone in any way to which this person could not rationally consent. So, ibig sabihin daw nun, yung pagtrato mo sa ibang tao sa mere means, ibig sabihin nun, you are not treating them with rational consent. Hindi sila nagbigay sa iyo ng rational consent. Ibig sabihin ng treating others as a mere means. Okay? So again, we need to interpret this. Ano ibig sabihin for someone to rationally consent? Ano yung mga condition? Okay? So nagbigay ang mga philosophers dito ng 4 na condition for consent to work. For a consent to be rational. Okay? So the first condition is the competence condition. So ano ibig sabihin lang nun? Ibig sabihin nun, for someone to make a valid and rational consent, that person has to be competent enough to make the consent. So ibig sabihin yan, halimbawa yung mga bata, they cannot give rational consent, di ba? Kasi they lack the competence, they lack the mental development to understand yung mga bagay kung saan sila nagko-consent, di ba? So kaya nga, di ba, may mga laws tayo na against sexual abuse of children, di ba? So kahit na umuo yung bata, di ba? Umuo siya sa gagawin, eh mali pa rin yun because our assumption is that the child is not competent enough to understand the situation. Okay? Ganun yun. So, ayan, nakalagay nga dyan, no? We have the reasonable assumption that 18 years old are already old enough to have developed the cognitive capacity to make decisions for themselves. Diba? So, kasi ang assumption natin doon, although medyo arbitrary yung 18 years old, ang assumption doon is kapag 18-year-old ka na, eh nasa tamang gulang ka na, nasa wastong isip ka na para makita yung consequences ng mga bagay na sasang-ayunan mo. Okay? So, ano yung mga bagay na pwede maka-impair for our capacity to give consent? So, halimbawa, being under the influence of alcohol or drugs. No? So, ibig sabihin ba nun, di responsible yung mga taong lasing kapag ginawa nilang isang bagay? Hindi pa rin. Di ba? Bakit? Kasi, bago ka sumabak sa pag-iinom or pag-drugs, eh, alam mo na yun. Ang assumption doon is, you have the rational capacity to see the consequences of your action. So, meron ka pa rin liability. So, yung mental illness, ayun, di ba? Mentally ill people are not competent to make their consent valid. Di ba? Kasi mentally ill nga sila eh. Second condition for consent to work, voluntariness. Okay? So, simple na sinasabi nun. Ibig sabihin nun, nung nag-consent yung tao na yun sa'yo, eh, walang persahang nangyari, walang coercion na nangyari. Okay? So, may mga factors yan para masabing yung isang consent, eh, kulang sa voluntariness. Diba? Yun, threats. Diba? Siyempre, pag binabantaan na yung buhay mo, kahit nag-consent ka doon, eh hindi valid yung consent mo kasi nga eh, may pagbabanta sa buhay, di ba? Or may mga subtle ones like for example, public and online shaming, di ba? Yung tinatawag natin ngayon na cancel culture, di ba? So ngayon mahirap na mag-express ng opinion, di ba? So kahit na mukhang nagko-consent yung isang tao, kung ginawa niya yon because of possible consequences, halimbawa nito, yung employer, nagsabi yung employer na you have to abide by this political agenda. Ngayon, halimbawa yung isang empleyado, ako, eh, hindi naman ako agree dito sa political agenda na to. nakikita ko na may mali dito sa political agenda nito, pero sabi ng employer ko, everyone has to abide. So ako, pwede ako mag-consent. Okay? Pero may lack of voluntariness doon. Bakit? Kasi baka nga naman, pag nag-oppose ako dito, matanggal ako sa trabaho. Okay? So, yung rational consent doon, yung consent doon is not valid kasi may lack of voluntariness. May threat, which is, pwede ako matanggal sa trabaho. Okay? And, how to determine the extent to which one is assumed to be voluntary is up for debate. Okay? So, marami kasi mga factors na pwedeng makapagbawas ng voluntariness o pwede rin maka-increase ng voluntariness. So, kailangan natin itong tignan on a case-to-case basis. No? There are cases in which an act that has no external coercion may not be voluntary after all. Di ba? Case of prisoners volunteering for clinical trials or students being asked by their professor to participate in a study, no? Okay? So, yun nga, kung titingnan natin halimbawa si professor. So, sabi ni professor, okay, sabi niya, mag-participate voluntary lang mag-participate dito sa study ko, no? So, pwede kayong humindi or pwede rin kayong sumali, di ba? So, lahat ng estudyante mukhang voluntary sila doon, pero meron doong subtle coercion kasi nga siyempre isipin ng estudyante, ay baka yung sasali dito ibibigyan ng extra point ni sir, o kaya baka yung hindi sasali dito ay maminusan niya, hindi niya lang sasabihin. So merong lack of voluntariness pa rin. Okay? Ikatlong condition for consent to work is the knowledge condition. Okay? So, ano naman yung knowledge condition? Siyempre, assumption lang dito, kapag nagbibigay ng consent yung isang tao, is dapat nasa kanya yung appropriate and relevant knowledge to give proper consent. No? Kailangan alam niya yung mga bagay kung saan siya nagko-consent. Okay? A valid consent presupposes an informed consent. Diba? So, kung yung isang bagay kung saan nagko-consent yung tao na yun, merong wini-withhold sa kanyang information, hindi mananalify niya yung validity ng consent, di ba? Kasi itinagaw yung mahalagang impormasyon na yun sa tao na yun, di ba? Ganon. So, ito, pwede natin ibigay na example dito yung sa mga terms and conditions ng mga kumpanya, di ba? So, kaya nga yung mga kumpanya, nagbibigay sila ng mga terms and conditions na kailangan mong i-agree, di ba? Diba, bago ka halimbawa sa sign up ka sa isang website, di ba? May terms and condition doon sa mag-agree ka. Kasi ang assumption doon, kailangan malaman mo yung mga bagay na pinagsasang-ayunan mo bago ka pumasok sa website, di ba? Kaya nga i-click mo doon yung I agree to the terms and conditions. Okay? Kailangan 'yon para ma-fulfill mo itong knowledge condition. Okay? So, ayan kaya nga yan, yung other example, doctors requiring explicit consent from their patients. So, halimbawa ako, parang last year, I had a ano tawag dito? Meron akong, anong tawag dito? Yung operation. Meron akong medical operation na dinaanan. So, bago ko yung dinaanan, meron akong pinirmahan na consent form. Okay? Yung part lang doon na medyo kinabahan ako, yung mayroon siyang maliit na chance na being life-threatening, no? So, kailangan i-state nila yun doon. Kahit gaano kaliit yung chance, basta may chance, kailangan isa-add nila yun doon para yung pasyente mayroong knowledge sa operation na kanyang pagdadaanan. Okay? Or school administrators requiring the same thing from would-be students. So, yan, ganun din. Nung pumasok ka sa kolehiyo, meron kang pipirmahan doon na kung ano man ang pagdadaanan mo is what consequences, what possible consequences yung pwede mong pagdaanan, di ba? Okay. And the last condition is the intention condition. Sabihin nun, sa pagbabigay mo ng consent, kailangan nag-i-agree kayo ng intention ng tao on the other side of the contract. Okay? So, halimbawa, kung si Pedro, hiniram niya yung kotse ni Juan, okay? Pero hindi alam ni Juan na gagamitin pala yun ni Pedro para mang-kidnap, okay? So, hindi valid doon yung consent niya kasi hindi nag-agree yung intention nilang dalawa, okay? Whereas, kung alam ni Juan na si Pedro ay gagamitin yun para mang-kidnap, ayun, valid yung consent. Diba? Kasi nag-agree sila ng intention. Pero without the intention condition, the consent is invalid. Okay. So, yun. Nakuha natin yung formula of humanity. Diba? May dalawang component. The respect expression principle and the mere means principle. Okay? So, the last is the formula of humanity, of autonomy. Okay, ito yung pangatlong formula ng categorical imperative. So, ano sinasabi ng formula of autonomy? Nakalagay dyan, act so that your will can regard itself at the same time as making universal law through its maxims. Again, medyo jargonic, medyo technical yung term, pero simple lang rin na sinasabi yan ni Kant. No? Kasi ang basis niya, sabi niya, ang basis ng morality is reason. Diba? Kaya nga yung categorical imperative ay kinumpara niya sa principle of non-contradiction. Diba? So, human beings, by virtue of their rational capacities, can determine what is right and wrong through the categorical imperative. Okay? So, ibig sabihin yan, para kay Kant, hindi kailangan ng external authority to determine the contents of morality. Okay? So, you don't need God to tell you what's right and wrong. You don't need the state, the government to tell you what's right and wrong. You don't need culture. So, taliwas siya dito sa divine command theory, taliwas din siya doon sa tinatawag nating moral conventionalism. Di ba? So, sabi niya, yung formula nito ay nag-i-express ng ideal of self-government. Okay? Kasi ang sinasabi niya dito, sa formula of autonomy, yung tao, by virtue of their rational capacities, can determine what's right and wrong. Okay? And by virtue of the reason, they are compelled to do it. Okay? So, human beings do not require external incentives to follow the contents of morality. Okay? Unless you want to be irrational. Diba? Parang ganun yan. Parang pwede kang mag-violate ng principle of non-contradiction pero ang ending nun, irrational ka. Diba? Kasi nga, yung isang bagay, hindi siya pwedeng mayroong property X at walang property X at the same time and in the same respect. So, para kay Kant, ganun din yung morality na by virtue of your reason, dapat makikita mo na you can legislate morality by the categorical imperative without external incentives. Pwede mo i-violate yung contents ng morality pero you will end up being irrational. Okay? So, sabi niya, a human being acts from a motive that originates from his own will. Diba? So, by virtue of your reason, you can determine the contents of morality and you are compelled to follow it by virtue of your reason. Diba? Pero hindi ibig sabihin na hindi ka na makakagawa ng immoral. Pwede mong gawin yon pero you end up being irrational. Okay? So, kaya ideal of self-government kasi lahat ng tao kaya niya i-determine yung contents of morality. Kaya nga sabi dyan ni Kant is lahat ng tao can produce the same universal moral principles by virtue of their reason. Di ba? Kahit ibang panahon pa yan, kahit ibang kultura pa yan, yung pag-discover natin ng contents ng morality parang pag-discover natin ng contents of mathematics. Di ba? Nasabi niya, kahit sa lupa-lupa yan ng mundo, yung mathematics sa India ay pareho sa na-discover yung mathematics sa Amerika. Diba? Kasi by virtue of the reason, we determine the contents of mathematics, the laws of mathematics. So, ganun din ang morality. Diba? By applying categorical imperative, diba? The test of universalizability, formula of humanity, makikita natin kung ano ang sinasabi ng morality, ano ang tama, ano ang mali. So, ang ending nito is kingdom of ends. Yung sinasabi ni Kant, a community of all rational agents governed by laws that they give to themselves collectively. Di ba? So imagine mo, ito yung ideal human community kay Kant. na kung saan isang komunidad ng mga tao na ginagamit, pinamumugaran ng kanilang rason, ng kanilang katuwiran, na govern ng mga batas na ibinigay din nila sa sarili nila by virtue of the reason. Diba? So, ayan o, moral laws command obedience because reason requires unconditionally that one act as they command. By so acting, one fully realizes one's nature as a rational being. Diba? So, ibalik ulit natin to sa parang principle of non-contradiction. Diba? Ang isang tao pwede niyang i-violate. Kaya lang, he will always or she will always end up being irrational. Diba? At mahirap mabuhay sa mundo na puro ka inconsistency. Diba? Kasi kapag you violate principles of non-contradiction, you become constantly inconsistent. At napakahirap mamuhay na kasama ibang tao na ikaw ay inconsistent. Mangyari nun, di ka papaniwalaan, di ba? You end up being irrational, yung reputation mo ay bababa kasi nga yung mga tao hindi magre-rely sa mga sinasabi mo kasi you are inconsistent and you are contradicting yourself. Di ba? Parang yung example natin kanina, yung si kasintahan na sabi niya single siya, pero meron pala siyang kasintahan, di ba? So, contradiction yun. So, pag malaman yun ng mga potential suitors niya, hindi na siya ngayon paniniwalaan. Diba? Yun yung nakikitang drawback ni Kant if you violate the principle of non-contradiction, at ganun din pag you violate the principle of morality, which is categorical imperative. You end up being inconsistent, diba? Yung mga tao hindi na maniniwala sa'yo, yung reputation mo ay bababa din, diba? Pero if you follow these commands, you fully realize your nature as a rational being, diba? Kasi sabi ni Kant, ang pinakatugatog talaga ng pagkatao ng isang tao ay yung kanyang kapasidad mga tuwiran. Okay? So, the more you use your reason, the more you realize your full capacity as a human being. So, you can only realize your full potential as a human being if you follow the principles of logic as well as the principles of morality. Okay? Kaya, formula of autonomy. Okay. So, ayun, that's all for now. So, again, sinasabi ko kanina, medyo napaka-technical talaga ng moral framework ni Kant, pero I hope I was able to explain it as much as understandable as possible. And if you have questions, again, sinasabi ko sa inyo, I'm always open for your questions, for your concerns, for your clarifications, no? Pero for now, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoy and you learn about deontology. Okay? And see you in the next one.